In 1995, I'm not even going to tell you. You know what happened. Nintendo did the thing, Virtual Boy failed, yada yada. But what about the games? Of the 14 games released in North America, the one that gets talked about the most is Mario's Tennis. It came with every Virtual Boy in the States. But what about the other Nintendo games? Of all the Nintendo published games for Virtual Boy, only 3 featured unique IPs that would never leave the system. And of those 3, only 2 featured actual characters. And of those 2, only 1 has a protagonist with a face. That game is Teleroboxer. Teleroboxer is a first-person boxing game in a similar vein of Punch-Out. Your goal is to figure out your opponent and change your strategies accordingly. Set in the 22nd century, telerobotics has become the hot new thing, and you and your Telerobot Harry have your eyes set on the champion's belt. Well, let's vomit preemptively and stick our heads in some goggles and check out the forgotten mech fighting game trapped in black and red. Playing a Virtual Boy game is like signing a death waiver. You may have seizures, you may die, I don't know. This screen here is for focusing the display. Each eye shows 2 VB logos in each corner. Before playing any game, we get asked if we want to turn on automatic pause. What is this exactly? Well, it differs from game to game, but in general, it just makes us take breaks every now and again. In Teleroboxer, it just tells you to take a break in between rounds. Edward Mackey Jr. is the inventor of telerobotics, and it says here in the manual that he started teleroboxing to increase the interest around his invention. Here we are. This is you. This kid doesn't have a name, and there's only 2 pieces of artwork of him outside this game. I surfed through the manual, the Japanese manual, all promotional art and advertisements, Nintendo Power, and I couldn't find any more info on him. He's just some kid. At most, they refer to him as a human. What an honorable label. Harry's right behind him, and you get a nice punch to the face in 3D. Okay, before we get into this, I need to set a few things straight. To record, I'll be playing this game on a modified version of the VB Jin emulator that supports side-by-side mode, and I'll be playing on a 3D TV. I'll also be using a Virtual Boy to USB adapter that allows me to connect my Virtual Boy controller to my computer. I will be showing some gameplay from the Virtual Boy as well throughout the video, but for the most part, the gameplay you'll be seeing was recorded on an emulator. I did not, however, use any form of cheats or save states. My playthrough was completely organic because nothing says organic more than everything on your screen right now. For gameplay from the actual Virtual Boy, I'll be recording through the left eye of my Virtual Boy, so please excuse the gameplay footage. Some might even call it guerrilla style. With that being said, 3D. I love 3D, and can promise you, you are not getting the full experience by playing a Virtual Boy game in 2D. If you want the full experience, play it in 3D like it was originally intended. So how does the effect work here? It's pretty good. I'll comment on it more later in the video, but right off the bat, the 3D effect is pretty cool. Pressing start, we hop straight in. There's 3 file slots to choose from, and then we get introduced to our first opponent. Pedro is piloted by Johnny. We get all this info about his sex, age, and where he's from. His sprite looks fucking terrifying. Something about the red and black palette makes everything scarier. Welcome to the most realistic game you'll ever play. The Virtual Boy controller sports 2 D-pads, allowing you to control each fist separate from each other. Because of this, you can choose which side to send your hooks, jabs, uppercuts, and body blows. You can block your head or your body, and you can also duck. Here in this first battle, you can probably tell most of these moves aren't really necessary because Pedro sucks ass. You can just mash every button and you'll still kick his ass. Each round lasts a minute, and each fight can last up to 5 rounds. After that, whoever has more health left over wins. Another ability Harry has is his strength meter. If you hold a guard for about a second, your fist will charge up and you can send a flurry of punches in one of 4 ways. The issue is, it's so fucking difficult to find an opportunity to land a flurry because the amount of time it takes to charge your fist, then throw the punches is longer than the amount of time it takes any enemy to initiate their next move. Once you kick his ass, you see Johnny pussy out and run off screen. Well, that was great. It's fun to throw punches and satisfying to land them, but there wasn't much strategy involved, but that was the first opponent, so I'm going to save my criticisms. Next up we have Spokong, piloted by Rick. He's from the US of A. Spokong is the first opponent to actually require some amount of skill. After you do enough damage to an enemy, they'll start to mix up their attacks. For example, the best strategy to start off with here is to let him punch you, block it, and then hit him with a body blow. Once you hit him, he'll be stunned for a second. Now you can uppercut him and stun him for a few more seconds and do more damage. Normally most enemies get dizzy after you uppercut or hook them 5 times, but a few have ways you can instantly make them dizzy. Now when I go in for a punch, he dodges, so I have to time my punches later. When you or an enemy's health drops low enough, the music changes and their attacks will change to their final patterns. This final phase is often the most stressful, and fucking up can get you killed quickly. But once you get those final hits in... What? So once the opponent's health drops to 0, the timer still continues for about a second. So if you kill him and then the timer hits a minute, he'll just start the next round with no health, but you still have to hit him once. Now with Spokong Spokong gone, Big Rick beats his chest and dies. Spokong definitely required some strategy and not just button mashing. It's fun to figure out how to beat these assholes, and I can definitely sense the punch-out inspiration. Dorhei is up next. What the fuck is this? His sex is unknown, he's 4, and he's from Germany. All the traits you would expect from the owner of a giant robot. Dorhei is where shit gets real. The difficulty goes from a 2 up to a 50. It's fucking ridiculous. Up to this point, the game has been about figuring out how to attack the opponent. You look for openings and learn their timing, but this is just fucking insane. Body blows do not work on Dorhei, so you're left with hooks, jabs, and uppercuts. And as I said earlier, only hooks and uppercuts can make the foe dizzy, and making them dizzy is the best way to inflict damage. Here's the problem. To land a hit with the uppercut or hook, you have to swing the moment you see Dorhei start to charge, right? That may sound hard, but once you get familiar with his attack patterns, you can start to predict when he'll go in for a swing, and just by getting used to the amount of time in between attacks. The issue is, if you swing on the same side of his attack, then he hits you and cancels out your attack. The only way you can beat him to the punch in that case would be to swing just before he charges, but no matter what, you have no way of knowing what direction he's gonna swing at, so you always just have a 50% chance of getting fucked. It's fucking ridiculous. Then he has his hook attacks. These are easy to dodge and are also easy to counter once you get the timing right, but if you get sloppy, you're done. When you die, you get a CRT shutoff effect, and whoever you were fighting laughs at you. Go home to mama. In my first playthrough, I spent close to an hour and 15 attempts fighting this cunt, but I finally figured out a strategy that got me through it. Here's what I did. When you block your body, Dorhei will always punch at your head. If you're blocking high, he'll punch low. If you're blocking low, he'll punch high. So since you can't hit him with body blows, I always block my body so that he goes for regular jabs. When he goes for a regular jab, he doesn't lower himself, so any punches I throw at him will hit him. If I throw a jab before he does, it cancels it out and I hit him. The issue with this is that my jabs do very little damage, and if I don't constantly return to blocking my body, then Dorhei goes for a body blow and it throws my whole rhythm off. It sounds like a convoluted clusterfuck strategy, but that's only because it is. When it comes to his hooks, I always just block them because if I try anything different, it'll fuck me up. Something I want to mention about the break screen in between rounds is that during this break, you and your opponent's health regenerates. Your opponent will only regen for half of the length of the music, but you'll regen for the whole music track, which is about 10 seconds. If you mash buttons while the music is still going, you can regen even more health, also like Punch Out. You can always just hit start right away so no one regains health, but if you have automatic pause turned on, both sides will regen no matter what, and you can't mash buttons to get more health, which can actually fuck with your strategy sometimes. This fight is excruciating, but once you get that final shot in... Yay! Bomb-kun is up next, and he's piloted by a 527-year-old question mark. Piggy looks like a less sexual Tingle. Just like me right now, there's a bomb strapped to his chest. If you couldn't tell right off the bat, you have 50 seconds to kill this shit or else he blows up and kills you. He's so happy. I don't understand the thought process here. On his end, there's no winning. He's dead either way. There's no strategy here. You pretty much just want to mash buttons and try to get some good timing. In the last 10 seconds, he opens his arms and just lets you go buck wild. This is where most of your damage is going to come from. Even with this though, you do want to get some hits in during the first 40 seconds. The bomb has been defused. This was quite the change in challenge from Dorhei. Moving on. Next up is the 16-year-old Sherry and her Teleroboxer Prin. I like that there's more characters with unknown genders than there are women in this game. And then the only female in this game has a vagina and these big robo-tits. Prin is fast as balls, and she will swing at you at every chance she gets. You can't really learn to beat her punches because her punches are so fast, and all her moves have such little time between them. When you punch her in the face, she gets pissed and starts slapping you. These slaps are a nightmare. First of all, the sound is annoying, and usually she does multiple slaps at once. So if you slip up when blocking, you're likely to just get the shit slapped out of you. She even has a tit attack where her tits pop out and stab you. I messed around a lot with this one, but after around 7 or 8 attempts, I started to realize that you can get a lot of hits in by doing body blows. If you can dodge her slaps and get body blows in when you can, you'll be alright. And after all that, she was blindfolded. No wonder she lost. What a fucking moron. Ikinger and Kevin. This guy is 9 years old and comes from Australia. Or Austria. I'm gonna take a wild shot in the dark and assume it's Australia. So Ikinger here... Why does every character have some weird, impossible to pronounce name? Like, what kind of name is Ikinger? Then some people would say, oh, well, those are the Japanese names, so of course they're gonna sound like that. What? Then why is his name Kevin? And it's not just Kevin in the US version, even in the Japanese version his name is Kevin. Why would they give him like a typical name you would hear in Australia, but then name his Teleroboxer some cockamamie bullshit name? Anyway, Ikengar is a kangaroo that hops back and forth. His punches are incredibly strong and he blocks most things you throw at him. He has a little joey in his pouch and he gets pissed off if you hit it. When the joey does get hit, he hops around faster and faster, throwing punches more sporadically. He's tough to hit and he gave me a bit of a hard time, but after a bit I started to notice some patterns. Ikengar's punches are always up high, so if you duck he'll never hit you. His joey is the only way he can hit you with a body blow, but while you're punching his joey will never try to hit at you. So if you're constantly ducking and constantly punching, neither of them will ever hit you. So after a while of just throwing uppercuts, you'll eventually just knock him out. And then Kevin just turns and shits away. We've reached the final opponent, Tukikage, piloted by Mamoru. He's from Japan and an A-rank fighter. Tukikage is really fast and he does this great tiger-ass move. Most attacks are too slow to hit him, but right off the bat I noticed that the only attack that doesn't get blocked is the body blow. It took a couple of tries, but I found that the best strategy is just to body blow him constantly and block whenever you need to. He does this leaf move where he disappears for a few seconds and then comes back. His punches do a lot of damage, and it only takes a few getting through to fatally fuck you. I feel like it's a shame that the game got a lot easier once I realized that to win, you just have to find the 1 or 2 ways an enemy can't block, and then just do that over and over again while blocking attacks, even at the end in the final fight. Something that does not suck any less the farther you are is getting to the very end and being neck to neck, and then you just get your ass handed to you. It's so insulting, a real kick to the nads. But once you make it and it's down to the wire, oh come on, that's it. It's over. Now everyone is dead. Thank God. Great. You are very strong. But you are not the true champion. What? You must now face legendary champ. What the fuck? So on this file, I have 4 losses, which I guess isn't good enough. Well, that's not as bad as my other playthrough with 54 losses. You must reach this point without loss. What? Are you fucking kidding me? He is waiting. Well, to fight the true champion, you have to beat all the fighters without losing once. To do this, you have to start a new file, and if you lose once at any point, you might as well just delete that file because all it's going to do is take up space. Here's what I want to say. As I mentioned earlier, I'm playing on an emulator, but to do this, I will not be using any save states or anything. I'm not going to be a bitch. I couldn't live with myself with that on my conscience because if I can't beat this game authentically, then I don't think I have any right to tell you about this game and the experience it provides. So going forward, I want to make it clear that I will not be cheating, and if you don't believe me, I'll leave a link in the description to the full unedited 2 hours of gameplay it took me to do this. With all that out of the way, this was my journey. So, to start off, I used the same tactics I used in the first time battling all of them, but abused the shit out of them. If you know your enemy and how they attack and dodge, use that to your advantage because when you're fighting them over and over again, you're going to want to get through them quickly. If you start fucking up though, you can't just quit or restart the battle from the pause menu. You either just let whoever it is kill you and delete the save file, or you reset the Virtual Boy. While I think every fight aside from the first one is one to worry about, the only one I think should definitely be a concern to you is Dorihei because of all the Teleroboxers, he's the only one that doesn't have a clear strategy or way to cheese the battle. Aside from that, Pring can be a bit threatening, but really that just comes down to your ability to dodge efficiently. If you have trouble with that, then it's going to be an issue. Going through this, I realized that Spokong is the best opponent in the game. He's got a very fair challenge with the learning curve, and his tactics change over time, making you try new things. It never feels unfair, and he never throws punches that are impossible to predict or block. He's also got my favorite design of all the boxers. The thing that's sad about this game is that it feels like these quote-unquote strategies are the best way to beat these guys. It's definitely possible to beat them all without cheesing any moves, because I have before, but once you find these, what I can only say feels like exploits, there's no reason to ever not use them. And it's not like they're hard to figure out. When you're trying your best to beat someone and realize that doing the same thing over and over again is working, you'll just end up using that move over and over again because it's the only thing you feel that works. Why bother doing damage little by little when you can just abuse what feels like a weak spot in the enemy programming? Watching back at a lot of this gameplay, it can sometimes look like I'm just spamming random things, which I am sometimes, but a lot of it is just me trying to throw punches every frame I'm confident I won't get hit. After a long while, it's over. Holy shit, what a goddamn nightmare. You must face legendary champ. Enter your name. What? I'm at the very end of the game and now they want me to enter my name? What weird placement. Not before the game starts or after the game's over, right before the final boss. Well, here we are. All we know about him is that he's ranked AA. There he is. It's a fucking cat robot. Holy shit. This guy is insane. His punches do so much damage, it's ridiculous. Right off the bat, I realized that he seems to be pretty prone to body blows, but obviously that didn't go too well. The next thing that seemed to be working was hooks. With good timing, you can hit him with a hook when he tries to jump on you. This is pretty risky though, because if your timing is off by more than half a second, you'll get scratched, and getting scratched is a death sentence. It only takes about 4 scratches to kill you, so if you break rhythm, forget it. Give up. For a while, I was just stuck on this guy, so eventually I had to look up the best strategy for fighting him. Well, it turns out I was right about the hooks, but that alone is half the strategy. The only other tactic is to uppercut constantly, because uppercuts have the lowest probability of being countered by this boss. The way he works is similar to Prin and Ikanger. He has 2 forms he hops between during the battle, and each has their own unique attacks. During his normal mode, he only does normal jabs and body blows, but during his pissed phase, he does the scratch attack and hooks. This whole game has been leading up to this, and this is definitely the hardest battle. Even with the strategy I'm using, it's super difficult to land punches and dodge his attacks. Because you never know which hand he's gonna throw, every single punch you throw is a 50-50 chance of either dealing damage or taking damage, and that goes for both of his phases. Your best bet is to successfully take all the 50-50 shots you can and to dodge and block perfectly, then to recover as much health as possible between rounds no matter what. Even if you think it's more worth it just to skip the break screen and continue with the fight, it's always best to just regenerate as much health as you can. Dodging scratches is a skill of its own, and if you or the cat break rhythm, forget it. It's brutal. You can't block in time, and if he throws a punch right after scratching, you may even become stunned. The way being stunned works is if you get hit by a hook or an uppercut while your fists are charged, you'll be stunned, and you have to mash up on the D-pads to make the effect wear off quicker. The scratches can be either body blows or jabs, so you have to constantly pay attention and react quick enough to block them. And like I said, sometimes he'll throw a punch right after, so you have to react to that too. It was neck and neck a few times, but seriously, this just feels like luck. It does feel like I'm getting as far as I am because of skill, but no matter how good I do, I need some luck to make it through. So after a long while of trying over and over and over again, wow, how unpredictable. Never would have guessed. Well, there we are. I beat Milky and it only took 35 attempts. I am now number 1. I know that you're seeing a 2D image, but honestly this belt looks really cool in 3D. And with that, this was Teleroboxer for the Virtual Boy. What an experience it's been. The credits are pretty cool. The stars flying in space look really awesome on the Virtual Boy, and all the devs have their own pictures, and Harry just beats the shit out of them. After the credits end, Harry and that kid smile, and the title screen turns into a message honoring you. Now, you have no choice but to play Title Defense. Here, you play opponents at random, and get to see how many opponents you can fight before failing. The spinner takes a really long time to stop, and all the enemies are a bit harder. The only new content here is some new info on Milky. His Teleroboxer is named Bamsham, and he's from Canada. Other than that, if you lose, you can't try again. I am the champ. Goodbye. You become retired and you can't play on that save anymore. It just becomes a trophy of how far you got. If you want to play Title Defense again, you have to beat the game all over again on a new save file. The Title Defense counter goes up to 999, but you don't actually get anything from it besides that number on your file. What a waste of a mode. Overall, here's what I think about this game. I think there's a lot of potential in this game. A new fighting technology that turns into a sport, characters with their own backstories, arms that you control individually from each other. It almost sounds a bit familiar. What it does have to offer is something special. You open the manual and all these characters have their own artwork and their own little stories and personalities. The gameplay is really fun for the first 2 fights, but after that, you're forced to learn the game inside out, which turns out being a bad thing because the game does not have the best design. There just isn't a good balance between actual strategy and what feels like forced exploits. Spokong is the only Teleroboxer that has a clear strategy that you couldn't just mash buttons to get past. When this game came out, it received very poor reviews. A lot of journalists complain about the difficulty and the mash to win gameplay, and others said that the 3D effect wasn't very impressive, which it wasn't. Playing the game on a Virtual Boy, this game's 3D effects aren't really crazy amazing. The way I played it on a 3D TV was much better, but I venture to guess most Virtual Boy experiences are. Here in Nintendo Power, they have to say a pro and a con about the game, so for the con they put that there's only one playable character, which is honestly like the last thing I would have complained about. For any of you who have used an actual Virtual Boy, you'll know that the display inside the system is much smaller than the gameplay you're seeing on your screen right now. It's like a tiny screen in a black void. It looks something closer to this. And even with the 3D effects the VB is limited to, it can definitely do something better than it does. The end credits 3D looks way better than any of the actual gameplay in 3D. But all in all, should you play this game? Well, if you want to check out some Virtual Boy games, definitely check this one out. I like the art style and theme a lot, and the main gameplay is pretty fun and satisfying, so if you have a VR headset, a 3D TV, a 3DS, or a Virtual Boy, I think it's worth checking out. Maybe not beating, but definitely messing around with. Today, Nintendo doesn't offer an official way to play this and hasn't ever re-released Virtual Boy games. The closest they've been was a Mario's Tennis video in the Labo VR kit. As far as Teleroboxer goes, Harry appears as a spirit in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which also makes him the only spirit from a Virtual Boy game. Other than that, Teleroboxer has been left in the past, and it seems like that's where it'll remain. I want to say thank you to B. Hodges 080 for his handy game facts guide, Retro Onyx for their amazing custom Virtual Boy accessories, and most of all Planet Virtual Boy for their archives of info and amazing community. And thank you to my first patron, EBGB. I appreciate your support. This has been Teleroboxer, released August 14th, 1995 for Virtual Boy, and I've been wasting your time. Thank you for watching.